Off we go on a Monday. It's the 16th of March here inside the vault for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. We're ready for a jam-packed week, I'm sure. Who knows what it'll bring after the last couple and really after the last couple months, but we will be here and ready to roll along the way. Thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of our program. This month, yet again, we got a $100 gift card giveaway. It is out there for the taking. Go ahead and learn more if you're interested in doing so before we address it later on in the show by clicking on the link that we have included as a pinned comment if you're watching us in real time. If you're not, it's in your show notes, whether you're in the audio-only space or on YouTube. Partner, we got a lot to get to because DeAndre Hopkins decided while he was on an African safari, mind you, in Tanzania, that's according to his Instagram, maybe he's back by now, but it sure seems like he's still there. He had a few feelings to let them be known, perhaps, on his Ravens tenure from the 2025 season, and we will talk about that and use it as an excuse to talk about how the Ravens should address business in terms of filling a void at veteran free agent wide receivers. We'll go there. We'll also go in a different – what's that?
Or a trade.
Or via trade. You never know. That's also an option that we'll discuss as well. And after that, Eric DaCosta has forked out some cash for veterans that perhaps had uncertain futures as of prior to this past weekend. From there, some quality day two offensive line targets that could potentially be looked at as plug-and-play starters for this offensive line coming up in 2026, and a whole lot more, including a new destination for Justin Fields. All that and more is what we have coming up. Great to see you, partner. Should be a fun week.
What a rundown. That was great. Is it windy in Florida also? Because it is windy out here, and I'm hearing it's windy in Baltimore. What's going down there in Florida?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe more so and none other more windy than what's going on in the Baltimore, D.C. region, who apparently is dealing with tornado warnings. That's what I've heard as of this morning. It is windy here as well, ironically. So much so, Tilly is looking at me as if the world's going to end. So hopefully that'll die down. She gets very anxious, and hopefully everybody is staying safe in the DMV. I gather that that's the case as well in Columbus today.
It is bananas. I mean, trees are falling over, branches fall out in the streets. It's out of control. One of my friends, they had a swing on the front porch. That got taken away. I don't know what's going on here, but I do know what's going on with DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
And he tweeted out this morning something that I just feel like he ends up saying at the end of his tweet, it's all facts. And I think he's right. So I don't know if some of you guys follow Nick Mason on Twitter, but he likes to get in there and tweet a lot about the Ravens. And he writes, hey, if the Ravens are in the market for a veteran wide receiver, which I suspect they are, and I think he's right, he says they should do a deal to bring in DeAndre Hopkins back to Baltimore. Okay, we're all open to that. Okay, we're open to it. But DeAndre Hopkins sees that, to your point, from his African safari. So maybe he's sitting there waiting to see the wildebeest migration. Maybe he's sitting out there on the safari waiting to see, I don't know, some of these animals drive by, walk by, run by, whatever. So maybe he's got time. And so he came back and he quote retweets that and he says, oh, and by the way, Nick Mason, when he said he was talking up DeAndre Hopkins, he showed a video of Hopkins with that absurd one-handed catch from Lamar Jackson to him in the end zone week 1. And then he had a couple more weeks, I think 2 more weeks, where he had 2 touchdowns. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared, Bobby. We've talked about this a few times. We're not the only one who noticed it. Obviously, DeAndre himself noticed it because he said, how many times after this do you think I was using the red zone? He said, when targeted, I'm still one of the most productive, but never complained with my snaps, and I never will. And he finishes saying, facts. Yeah, Bobby, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be the most productive in terms of yards and catches, but when he's talking about the red zone, or when he was talking about in those gotta have it moments on third downs, must convert, yeah, I still believe in DeAndre Hopkins, and he showed us that, and I still, to this day, don't quite understand what happened to him. And so when he's replying to these guys, to Nick, and saying, I want you to come back, I think he's almost being like, well, am I going to be used? because I could be productive, and maybe with the new coaching regime, I would be used. But why would he want to come back unless he's got more assurance that he would be used?
Yeah. DeAndre had multiple options. He talked about it at length multiple times throughout the season, this time last year. But he wanted to run it up and not run it back because he'd never had a chance to team up with Lamar before. But obviously it's well documented that he and Lamar had wanted to years and years prior. But he had multiple options. He could have went elsewhere and maybe even gotten more money elsewhere a year ago. But he decided to go with Lamar and Derek. And seeing this tweet earlier this morning brought me back to a snippet from a media availability of his in mid-December. So we can all kind of rewind for a second. What was happening in mid-December? Well, the Ravens were in must-win mode. They were still mathematically in it, and they had to obviously put together a run the way that they did, and it came close. They gave themselves a shot, as we all remember, in the regular season finale for a win and you're in type of opportunity, and they fell short of that. But in mid-December, it meant everything that DeAndre was playing meaningful football, and it's yet another example of why not only is he telling the truth here, but we saw it week in and week out last year. He did and said the right things, but it doesn't mean that he didn't have true feelings, which is kind of what he's suggesting now, as a wide receiver, as most wide receivers would have internally, about their desire to be involved. Here's DeAndre back in December.
Out there on the field, I try to do what I can. Obviously, I'm always be a competitor and have a Mamba mentality till the day I retire. And even after that, I probably still, will have that mentality. Like, I feel like, I'm one of the best players on the field. Statistically, if that's not the case, that's always been my mindset. And so coming here, this offseason, obviously, there's a lot of guys that deserve the ball on this team, and we have a good offense. So, I wasn't, and I'm not upset that, things, aren't, statistically, where I expected myself to be. But, we're in a position to play, a big game this coming week, next weekend. And that's, that to me, that means more than statistics, going out there playing meaningful football.
Sarah, I went ahead and condensed that clip for our timing purposes. But in that, prior to that portion of the answer where essentially he's being a team player, he celebrated the idea that Zay Flowers was enjoying a career year last year. He celebrated the idea that he was seeing real development in a small sample size from Devontae Walker, who's expected to take a leap in 2026. I can't remember if he mentioned Bateman specifically, but obviously Rashad had a difficult season on a number of levels last year. But the point is that much like Odell ended up becoming in 23, DeAndre was a seamless fit from a locker room cultural standpoint. And he didn't have a ton of chances, which is kind of what we're discussing today, to show that he still has it. But when he did get those chances, he delivered 22 receptions, 39 targets, 330 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns in 17 games played. You already referenced that opening night play, which was OBJ-esque, if you will, that one-handed grab from Lamar. Maybe the most dynamic play that we've seen between Lamar and a player at the wide receiver position of DeAndre's caliber over Lamar's 8 seasons in Baltimore. Lamar's made a lot of those plays himself, of course, but what he did there with the greatness on the other end of DeAndre was almost like heart-stopping type of stuff, right? I remember being like, is this what's coming up all year long? And then to your point, he's slowly started to be phased out of the offense from a target share standpoint. Now, look, is he an every down player at this point in his career? He's about to be 34 in June. The answer is no. He can still separate. He can still go get up and get a 50-50 ball. He can still be a locker room presence. He's good for the young youth type players that they already have in that room. And he feels like he's still got something left to give. And we saw that last year. He does still have something left to give. And I'd be willing to bet it's more than what the Nelson Aguilars were able to give, the Willie Sneads. We can go on and on. The DeMarcus Robinsons, all those guys were good, solid role players and had their moments. But DeAndre still has something left to give. He may feel like it's best served outside of Baltimore, and he probably will be a latter half of free agency acquisition for a team. But why not the Ravens? Now, we don't know what their new regime views that he still has left in the tank, but why not? He left you all wanting more last year, did he not?
He did, although he was never completing. And after this season, so you played the clip of during the season, here he was with Kay Adams talking about his time with Baltimore and if he would return.
Just the reality of it, having a new offense coordinator, being an older guy, I know football and I know how the business side works. Of course, I would love to come back, but not every offensive coordinator is in love or wanting a veteran receiver on their team. Some guys have different dynamics of how they go about coaching. So for me, it's nothing personal. Obviously Lamar and I had a great connection. I think when he came to me, I might have been top 10 and productive receivers in the NFL, and that's just when the ball came my way. But of course, I love Baltimore, and me being a competitor, I would have loved to have been used more. Even though that we had Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman on the field and Isaiah Likely. I'm always going to have that mindset that I want to be in the game every third down, every big down. So as long as I'm playing, that would never change. But it doesn't upset me that I wasn't. It doesn't make me become a bad teammate. I'm still cheering the guys on that are in the game. But of course, I felt that I could have been used more. Especially the way Lamar and I started off the season. With the connection that we had. So. For myself, of course, I love Baltimore. I think the city is great. I think the people, the fans are amazing. Organization, I think, is amazing. So, why wouldn't I want to come back? But,
I'm asking, it sounds like is it done, or are you just like seeing it as a business? Like, is your chapter done, you think, there? Because Cliff Kingsbury's rumored. You spent a year with him. If he was the OC, or Joe Brady. You scored a touchdown on Jesse Minter. I'm sure he's interested in having you. Remember that one? I do.
I remember that one. Who knows? Who knows? I'm not closing the chapter. Okay. But we shall see. I would love to play with Lamar again. I don't know the last time I played with a quarterback 2 years in a row, and a lot. And it sucks, but it's part of the game.
So it's interesting, Bobby. He's certainly, despite wanting the ball more, he's correct. He never complained during the season. We showed that clip in the locker room. He never complained. He celebrated people, but he clearly wants the ball more. And yet he's still open to returning because he does love Lamar. He would like to play with the quarterback for the second year in a row. But it's unclear what the new regime and Declan Doyle, Jesse Minter would think of DeAndre Hopkins. And to your point, you don't need to make a decision anytime soon, because last year they signed him. It was 1 year, $5 million. So another year removed at 34 years old, it's going to be even less than that. And we could be talking about, him still being available perhaps after the draft. And so you don't need to make a decision anytime soon. And on top of it, it's not just like in a vacuum. Would you take DeAndre Hopkins? Sure. Especially if he's going to be less than $5 million for 1 year. Like that's not a problem. You can swing that with the cap. But the question is that the best option? And this morning, Jeff Zrebiec did an opinion piece on 10 different players that could still wind up with the Ravens. And for the purposes of our topic right now, we're going to focus on the receivers he pinpointed. Now, before we start going through the receivers that he said the Ravens could potentially be interested in, did you have anything else you wanted to say on D-Hop to wrap up him and then compare him to these other guys?
I think we've covered it pretty well. I will send out a call to action to everybody that we just threw up a poll. And if you'd like to vote in this poll, because it's a perfect segue into what you're bringing us into right now, Sarah, go ahead and do so. And we're asking you guys today, of the 4 options that we're capped at, right? We would put more in this poll, but there's only 4 options. Which veteran wide receiver should the Ravens target? We've got Hopkins out there. We've got Diggs, Christian Kirk, and Jawan Jennings, 2 of which are going to be mentioned here in the coming moments, these slides that Jeff has prepared. So that poll is now live, and let's get into.
I would have you're right. We need more options because I'm going to have other options besides that.
we do.
Yeah, we do. Well, first off, here's Jeff putting out Jawan Jennings from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he's a bigger wide receiver. He's physical, would complement Zay more. Obviously, you still have Bateman. Jawan Jennings isn't going to view himself as wide receiver number 3. He sees, in fact, I was just listening to a YouTube stream similar to ours for the San Francisco market this morning. And they're all like, why is Juwan James still not signed? Because Juwan James holds himself. Jennings, sorry. Juwan James. Oh, that's the offensive tackle that we were upset about because he was not getting the calls against the Chiefs game and whatever. Remember that week 1 game? Okay. Juwan Jennings holds himself in high esteem and really feels like he deserves a payday. And so the guys that were discussing this on their stream in San Francisco were like, well, there might be a couple of problems. One, he may see himself more valuable than the rest of the league. Number two, there's availability. And number three, they thought maybe the league views some of the wide receivers out of San Francisco more as like system wide receivers under Shanahan than just, great in their own right, kind of comparing it to Deebo Samuel, who didn't do much after he left San Francisco. That was kind of their analysis of the situation. But Jeff here says he's had 15 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. He's an extremely physical blocker on the perimeter, which is obviously important to the Ravens. So Jeff says, Juwan still might be primed to make more money than Baltimore wants to pay, but if his market doesn't materialize, which it hasn't through the first 2 waves of free agency, if it continues not to materialize, DaCosta should consider pouncing. Jeff says he'd be a nice fit. How do you feel about Juwan Jennings?
I think there's going to be a team that's willing to pay a lot more than the Ravens would and will. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say. I think he'd be a great compliment, like you said. I discussed this at length on last night's show on my program. I just think that Juwan is still capable of earning the type of money that I don't think it's not that the Ravens don't have it. I just don't think they'll be willing to do it. They have to allocate elsewhere. That's my prediction on Juwan, who is a lot of people, Sarah. I just was taking a look at ESPN.com's top 30 free agents. Matt Bowen put this together last week, and he's number 1. And that's not just the only publication that he's viewed as the number 1 available free agent. And I'm not just talking about wide receivers. I'm talking about free agency as a whole. Another one of those players that made his list in the top 30 is a former Raven in Marquise Hollywood Brown. And that's someone who earned notoriety here in Jeff's piece that dropped this morning. And the screenshot that you provided us is that there's been a lot of speculation about a reunion between the Ravens and their 2019 first-round pick, although there's been no indication that it's anything more than an attempt to connect the dots. Marquise and DaCosta have a very good relationship. I mean, because Eric was his first year as general manager, his first ever selection in any draft as the head honcho GM was Marquise. Brown is also extremely close with Lamar. We've seen the offseason highlights down in South Florida. There's no question that the Ravens need a receiver, and Brown's speed and big playability would be a welcome addition. However, if the Ravens use a chunk of cap space on a receiver, you'd think they'll be looking at bigger targets. Nothing that we haven't said before, Sarah, in recent weeks, and you've already used the word compliment. That's what they should be looking at. Who will best complement Zay Flowers, who's primed to get a nice extension from them if they want to keep him in their program for years to come after what he's done his first several years in this league.
Yeah, so it's funny because part of the reason why this all kind of flared up, this idea of a reunion, is because of the Instagram post that Marquise Brown put up. I think it was like back mid-February, and had a purple heart on there. And then, of course, Lamar kind of gets things going by replying and saying purple heart means Hollywood to the Ravens. Which I'm sure Lamar would love, because they were great friends when they were here together after the Ravens drafted him in 2019. And they're both from Florida, South Florida. They both work out, as Jeff pointed out, during the offseason together. Still great friends, still productive. And so the option so far that we've gone over is Hopkins, Hollywood, and who did we just do? And Juwan Jennings. The last one that Jeff puts down, and of all people, it's Jeff that keeps pushing this in the Baltimore market. And I know he jokes about this with you guys in the collective, but he still has A.J. Brown there. Still open to that trade, especially after the Crosby one, broke down and they backed out. So if they were willing to make big swings, maybe they still are. And he says there's been little buzz over the last couple weeks of these two being together. And most people think that A.J. Brown is either going to remain an Eagle or be traded to the New England Patriots, where he would reunite with his former head coach from Tennessee, Mike Vrabel. He says, however, Jeff says, it wouldn't be the first time the Ravens came out of nowhere to land a star player. Baltimore would benefit from adding a big and physical receiver, and DeCosta has done plenty of trades with the Eagles general manager Howie Roseman. It seems highly unlikely that the Ravens would part with a first-rounder plus for Brown, but we thought the same before the Crosby deal. So I think maybe that's why Jeff's leaving it open. Now, to be clear, it's reported that Howie wants a first and a second-rounder. And I promised Bobby that I'd go look up what wide receivers have been going for. Bigger name wide receivers, what they've been going for, to kind of prove my point that Howie's asking for too much, which maybe he's doing on purpose because he doesn't want to move him. But DJ Moore, as we know, was just traded in March a couple weeks ago. And Buffalo gave up a 5th and a 2nd-round pick for him. Okay. George Pickens, traded in May of 2025, was a 6th, a 3rd, and a 5th. No. He traded $2 from Pittsburgh with a 6th. Okay, so then they gave a 3rd and a 5th. Okay. DK Metcalf. The Steelers got Metcalf with a 6th-rounder, and they sent back a 2nd and a 7th. Then you got to go back to Devontae Adams in 2024, another kind of big name. He was traded to New York from Las Vegas for a 3rd-round pick. Now, Marquise Brown is the only one that really I can see has gone for a lot more. That was back in 2022, where the Ravens got a 1st-round pick, or gave up a 1st-round pick and got a 3rd back. But Marquise Brown doesn't quite fit the mold of what we're talking about with A.J. Brown, because Marquise was still on his rookie deal.
Well, I was just going to say, he was coming off a Pro Bowl 1,000-yard season, and he was literally a 4th-year player. I mean, let's see, 2019, 20. He had been in the league for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I actually think he had 2 years left. Yeah, especially with the 5th-year option. So, like, that's different when a guy is still on his rookie deal and he's younger. That's not what we're talking about here. That's the only 1st-round pick. Well, that's not true. A.J. Brown himself, way back in 2022, traded to Philadelphia from Tennessee for a 2022 1st-round pick and a 3rd-round pick. But now Howie wants more 4 years later than what he got him for 4 years ago. That's not how this works. He's gotten older. So he got him for a 1st and a 3rd, and now he's asking for a 1st and 2nd, and he's older? No. Then Stephon Diggs, and this is him coming off of a huge year. He was traded to Houston from Buffalo. Buffalo sent over with Diggs a 5th-rounder and a 6th-rounder for a 2nd-rounder. So how he's asking for is just not what the market is saying. And I honestly throw out Marquise Brown. So then then he hurts his own chances by giving up a 1st and a 3rd and now asking for more. So I stand by what I said before. A 2nd and Bateman for A.J. Brown, I would do it, but I don't know that it doesn't sound like Howie would. So he very well may just stay in Philly.
And Bateman. A 2nd and Bateman. Who wouldn't sign up for that in Baltimore? A 2nd and Bateman. That's the 45th overall selection if you're doing this year's. 45th in the 2nd. And a player who has not even come close to reaching his 1st-round caliber ceiling in what year was he? 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. 5 NFL seasons for Bateman. And the peak has been flashes his rookie year. And then, of course, in 24, when he was healthy, which has been the most pressing issue for him, he went north of 700 yards receiving and I think 9 touchdowns, which tripled what he had done previously in terms of overall production. So I don't know how you couldn't get behind the proposal that you're floating there.
Yeah. And I honestly think it's fair. It's not just like, oh, this is, of course, you could throw out anything, be like, okay, I'll send a 6 and people could get behind that. But I honestly think it's fair. I think it's fair. I think it would be a good pickup for Philly to get Bateman. He'd be cheap. He can be productive, and you get a 2nd-round pick. I think that's more than fair.
Howie might be over here be like, no. It starts at a first. All right. There's nothing fair about anything
right,
not
Howie.
including a first.
Let's see how that works for you, Howie.
Guys, thanks so much for being with us today. Over 1,200 in the YouTube space. So thanks for showing up.
What's the results of the poll?
Well, it's ongoing, but right now the results are, and let it populate. The votes are counting up. You should see when I don't refresh the screen and I toggle back over to that tab, the number just starts like zipping north of what it is. Okay, so 461 votes as of now, 13 minutes into this poll question. Which veteran wide receiver should the Ravens target? And D-Hop leads the way comfortably at 64%. Juwan Jennings is 20%. Stephon Diggs is 11%. And Christian Kirk is 5%. And that number is climbing. So
of all these guys, Bobby, who would you take? Let's end it on this note. Each of us has to choose one.
Well, so factoring in the financial component and like the realistic component. Yeah, bring Hopkins back.
That's your okay.
I would sign up for that because like I said, I think Jennings is going to get more elsewhere than what the Ravens are willing to do. The Diggs component, as we've talked about, is a level of risk because of his current legal situation.
Yep.
Who else did we talk about? Marquise, I think, would not, you look, measurables wise, you already have a Marquise in-house in Zay. They play the game differently, but I think there'd be a more complimentary piece out there than Marquise. All due respect to him. Hope he continues his career. He's also been banged up in recent years as well, including a pretty serious sternoclavicular injury last year. Maybe that was a year or two ago at this point. So I would welcome the idea of a rookie wide receiver on day one or day two.
Mm-hmm.
The continued development and perhaps an increase in role for Devontae Walker. And then a player that really is just chasing one thing and one thing only that'll solidify and re-solidify his Hall of Fame status. And that's DeAndre Hopkins. So you'd be looking at a room with Zay Flowers. You'd be looking at a room with Devontae Walker, Rashad Bateman, a rookie, and DeAndre Hopkins. I'd sign up for that.
Yeah, I would too. And I think Marquise Brown could actually be cheap. He signed last year for $1 million or 1 year, $7 million. But I think you're right. I don't see the fit. I think if you are in the mode of like, we want to like win now and we're going to be aggressive, then like AJ Brown's that guy, but I'm not overpaying for him. So I don't really see Howie agreeing. I don't see Howie and EDC agreeing to that. Like if you could get AJ Brown, that'd be sweet, but I just don't know that that's going to happen. I will say so everything you just said, I'm there with. I think that's the most likely scenario. I am with Jeff though. Keep watching Juwan Jennings and see what happens with his market, because the longer he sits there, the better the deal the Ravens could get. And I do think that he could fit based off of his physical makeup. So I would rubber stamp what you just said while keeping an eye on Juwan Jennings' market. That's cool. And the live chat's also pointing out, which is helpful, that while we're on the topic of wide receiver conversations, who are on the 90-man roster and was on the 53 from last year, LaJohntay Wester, the rookie out of Colorado that was sort of a special teamer for them, unclear because they've just completely overhauled their special teams group aside from Randy Brown. So who knows what they'll view LaJohntay as. He's got some freaky speed, as we saw in the preseason, and at times here and there in the regular season. He also struggled with locating the football in a small sample size as a return specialist. So yes, he's in that conversation as well. But after what I saw his rookie year, Sarah, probably more as a specialist. But hey, he can prove me wrong, and we'll see what happens this summer when he's back for year two. We got super chats and a read to get into. And like I was just saying, man, let me just refresh this number. We've got over 1,300 in the YouTube space concurrently watching us today. So nice. Hey, thanks for spending part of your Mondays with us, guys. And if you could like the video on your way in, we'd appreciate it. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our live content and help us reach a big milestone coming up. We are closing in on 30,000 subscriptions. And if you're one of the 1,000 people that's watching from Twitter, X, consider going over to YouTube and subscribing.
It helps immensely. It really does. I know it's probably convenient and easy when you're scrolling through Twitter and you see us live, but if you love us, just consider that it really helps this channel growth if you could go over to YouTube. Appreciate you guys. James Mothers wants to spam us about the bonuses and triggers.
Hey,
we're
James,
getting there
we're
in just
getting
a second,
there, buddy.
James. Don't you worry.
Chill, buddy.
We're coming, brother. We're coming. But first, this episode is... James, are you copying and pasting?
James, we may have to put you in timeout for spamming, buddy. There's spam rules. We'll get to that question.
About to block your arson here on a Monday. Big show, big viewership. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we hope that you'll consider perhaps taking a look at this month's giveaway, courtesy of Primary Residential Mortgage. And as always, they have a message for you as well if you are potentially interested in getting your home buying process started in 2026. Are you getting a tax refund from the IRS this year? What if you use that or a portion of that to buy a home instead of spending it? Your tax refund could help cover a portion of the down payment, closing costs, paying off debt to boost buying power, and maybe even moving expenses. Your refund isn't just extra cash. It could be your first step toward building long-term wealth. Closing costs and fees may still apply. If you have questions, you can give our friends at Primary Residential Mortgage a call today. 410-663-2222 will allow you to directly reach the Towson branch for those of you in the Baltimore area. But if you're not in Maryland, that's okay because they'll work with you regardless. 410-663-2222. We appreciate Primary Residential Mortgage for the opportunity to continue working together this offseason. And by the way, as you see on the screen right now, here are the instructions if you haven't yet, and over 10 of you have already. But if you haven't entered yourself into this giveaway for the $100 gift card towards our merch store, please go ahead and do so. You can comment on the Instagram post. It's also on Facebook as well. But for this purpose right here, comment on the Instagram post with the hashtag Vault. Tag 3 friends you'd buy a house with. Follow at PRMI Mid-Atlantic on Instagram. Subscribe to the Vault on YouTube if you don't already with your notifications on. And you want to go the extra mile? Scan the QR code that you see on the screen or just copy and paste this Google form link right here. It'll allow you to fill it out in less than 30 seconds. And if you win, we can easily reach you. We'll announce that later on this month. Appreciate them for the continued support. And all that information can be found in the show notes. As always, to Super Chats we go. And our nephew Pete says it's the first day of spring break, and I'm able to catch full live streams. Mr. Salisbury on his spring break. Pete, hope you have a great vacation, brother. Evan's with us, who's celebrating 7 months of channel membership. What's up, Ev?
Evan says it's interesting the amount of grace D-Hop is getting for his production or lack thereof last season, while people poo-poo Bateman. That is an interesting comparison. There is much more grace for D-Hop. My guess, it has to do with a couple of things. Investment isn't matching. So when you invest 1 year for $5 million in D-Hop and you used a first round pick on Bateman, obviously years ago, and you re-sign him, and again, it's a pretty team-friendly deal, but actually Bateman was very grateful for it at the time because he was injured and he wasn't able to showcase what he could do. So it's not like he was going to get a big deal on the open market. And so I think it's based off of investment. And so when you pay 1 year, $5 million, and you're basically getting very similar production. So both D-Hop got 39 targets last year. Rashad Bateman had 38. Bateman got 19 caught 19 off of that. D-Hop was 22. D-Hop had 330 yards to Rashad Bateman's 224. So D-Hop had 15 yards per reception. Rashad was 11.8. They both had 2 touchdowns. D-Hop had 15 first downs. Rashad had 12. So they're similar. D-Hop got more yards per reception. So I think investment has something to do with it. I do think the way they carry themselves have something to do with it. I mean, we saw those electric plays, and D-Hop's right. He never complained. Bateman, you kind of get the feeling on social media here and there. He seems to be a little bit upset by it. I don't really blame anybody if they're upset by it, but like one, you just have warmer feeling towards than the other. And then I think there's the issue of feeling like Rashad Bateman gave up on routes from time to time, had some drops from time to time that he probably shouldn't have had. And so I think that's where that comes in. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, Bobby, but that's why I think some people have warmer feelings to D-Hop than Bateman.
Couldn't this be easily summarized in just like track records and resume? Isn't DeAndre deserving of grace in those departments? I mean, I get it. It's what have you done for me lately in this league? But DeAndre has still been a productive player in recent seasons. So I hear where you're coming from, Ev, but I think that has something to do with it too. DeAndre's still got something left in the tank ahead of his age 34 season. And clearly he feels that way based on the tweet that we started off today with earlier this morning.
I am curious to see Bateman with Declan Doyle. Let's see what happens.
Sure.
And it looks like they're sticking with him. So
yeah, as things stand today. NX Kia 7312 says Brett Coleman, popular NFL YouTuber, dropped a video on us, meaning the Ravens. Says we can't draft and we are desperate. Sort of agree. Even if they are good, we let them go to other teams. Well, look, that's the ultimate sign of when you're in a salary cap era. When you have other teams that are clamoring for your homegrown guys, yeah, it's a disappointment and sometimes a failure to not keep them in-house, but it's also a product of the salary cap era. You can't keep everybody. And aren't you the one that always shares the statistics, Sarah, that there's no more homegrown Ravens that are actively playing in this league? Like no other team has more homegrown players that are actively playing in the NFL. I can't remember who shares that statistic. I feel like it's Femi. But anyway, that's what the Ravens own. And so some of that does come from, it's almost like one of your efficiencies becomes your deficiency given some of the cap that you operate under with the restrictions of a salary cap league.
Yeah, and that Brett Coleman thing, I've seen a lot of people. I mean, it's 11 minutes long. I guess we could break up some pieces and bring it in here. I think overall, there's a point to be made that the Ravens have tried to invest in the pass rusher position. And he is talking quite a bit about pass rusher in this. It's not the only thing, though. And they've just, Ajabo, Odafe, and Mike Green, they've been swinging with early picks. And we'll see what happens with Mike Green. Odafe was okay, and he just got paid, but he never really broke out, on his own without like maybe some interior help with Matabike. But there were some other things that I think people took issue with. We could break that down if people want. It's an 11-minute video that we can maybe break up tomorrow.
We certainly know the position group that they've fallen short of, and you just referenced it right there. And that's an area that they've got to shore up in this new regime.
And to the point is you don't usually pay big money to out other people's free agents the way they just did with Trey. And they usually don't do that because they are able to draft and develop at almost every position. Yeah. And DaCosta and who knows, maybe part of it though, and this is part of what people push back on with Brett, is that how much of it is coaching, not developing guys. Like, I don't know how to differentiate. It's tough to differentiate the two sometimes.
Well, you're going to have a chance to in the coming years with a completely
Jesse
new
Minter is here.
Yep.
And I do believe, look what he did with Odafe,
Yep.
So we'll see. For example, Mike Green, let's see what Jesse Minter and company do with Mike Green.
Yeah. Caleb Barnes is here. And he says, considering the current state of the wide receiver room and losing likely, why not bring Hopkins back? Thanks, Caleb. Robbie Pate. By the way, you mentioned David Ajabo, and I meant to put a footnote in my mind on this. He's getting an opportunity. He's going to the Miami Dolphins. David Ajabo, the former second-round pick. That was one of the many moves that happened over the weekend. It was actually on Friday that came down. So their former second-rounder, they wanted to take a flyer on, Sarah, even with that torn Achilles that was in the rear view on his pro day for Michigan. It never, ever panned out for him in Baltimore for a multitude of reasons. Mostly availability or lack thereof. He's going to get an opportunity to resurrect his career and change his scenery with the Dolphins. And that brings us to Robbie Pate.
Says it's a waste to bring Hopkins or any veteran wide receiver in if we keep Bateman. Bateman had the same amount of targets as Hopkins and was less productive.
Competition breeds excellence, Robbie. That's what I'd say to that.
Yeah, you need more people in the wide receiver room.
Remember, I don't think they're bringing Tylen back. If they do, it won't be till the latter half.
They have 4 wide receivers right now?
You've got Zay, Bateman, Devontae, and LeJounte.
And LeJounte's mostly a returner. I mean, maybe they could use more, but he's mostly a returner.
You've got
so you do need a veteran, and you have a spot for a rookie that you draft. Like, you're gonna get a veteran, and you're gonna draft a guy. Like, that's what's going to happen for sure.
And you got undrafted rookies that'll have their say in the summer, like Dayton Wade, who's the training camp darling for this fan base. He's been signed to the ERFA tender, as has Corey Bullock and a couple others. That was from the last week as well. So thanks, Robbie. He put on a masterclass last week when I had a power outage, and he just so happened to be tuning in as a guest call, and he just took the rock and started hooping. I love it. Femi, for you.
He says, give me Debo and Njoku. Says, I like D-Hop as well. Jennings, too expensive today. Give me Zeitler, cost-friendly. Hollywood could work, but seems unlikely.
Well, wouldn't that be interesting if they go Zeitler after signing Simpson? Wouldn't that be interesting?
Right.
That seems unlikely. Fem has been pounding the table for Njoku for a while now.
Yes, he has.
He's at a similar point in his career as Andrews is. He's been banged up in recent seasons, but we know we've had a firsthand look covering the Ravens over the years, when healthy, what he can do and how dynamic of a pass catcher he is. He really does it all. Now, does that make sense, though, if you bring him in and then go draft not to go back down our rabbit hole of last week, but a day 1 or day 2 dynamic tight end in what is a projected deep class this year at that position, Sarah? Does that make sense? Because when you bring in Njoku, you got somebody that is a veteran at this point that probably has less football ahead of him than most at that position, especially given his injury history. If you go and draft a dynamic tight end like you did a couple years ago on day 3 with Kohler and Likely, one of whom ended up, becoming a heck of a wide receiver, if you will, for you in a small sample size for Likely, that would make sense. The Debo side of things would occupy the veteran wide receiver market. I don't think we discussed him off the top, did we?
No, we didn't. But he's another, obviously, physical wide receiver.
He is.
Yeah.
Spent last year in Washington. Thanks, Fem.
You really think the Ravens are going to get Kenyon Sadiq?
Well,
Ravens are. There's going to be a day 3 tight end. I can almost guarantee it.
I'm just trying to consider the zigging, zagging approach over the years. I'm just trying to be mindful of that hot prospect that everybody has tied to the Ravens, like Vanga has been. That rarely ends up being the move. It has in recent seasons.
Recently, like Malachi Starks, who didn't say Malachi Starks was going to be the Ravens pick, and I feel like there's another one too.
There was someone else. Within the last few years, there was someone else. So it's not to say that it doesn't happen, but I would venture to say that it rarely happens. Wes Hall is
Nate
here.
Wiggins, Zay Flowers, Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum. I do remember a lot of people projecting Rashad Bateman, actually, to the Ravens.
I do remember Malachi.
Malachi was like, there was no secret behind that one.
By the way, just for the record, before we move on to Wes here, would you welcome the idea of pairing a veteran with a veteran at tight end with Njoku and then bringing in a day 3? I know you want a day 3, so I'm
not saying I want to. I just feel like that's where the Ravens usually strike gold. I guess maybe day 2 with maybe 3rd or 4th round. 3rd or 4th round is where I see them getting a tight end.
Let me rephrase that though.
Okay.
Given what they just lost, and knowing that they just brought in a on-paper veteran replacement for Kohler in Durham Smythe as the blocking tight end, would you be okay with, and I'm pulling up Njoku in this free agent rankings list because I had some numbers on him that I wanted to share before I asked this question. So he'll be 30 entering 2026. He's been with Cleveland. Matt Bowen says what he brings with his frame and physical tools. Njoku is a seam stretcher who can create isolation matchups in the low red zone. However, he missed 11 games in the past 2 seasons because of injuries. In 12 games this past year, he caught 33 passes for 293 yards and 4 touchdowns. Knowing that, would you be comfortable pairing that with Mark Andrews and a rookie?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the price, obviously. Are you going to get him to, I don't know, what are some 1-year deals that you're going to give to tight ends this year? I don't think it's going to hit $5 million. I mean, are you talking about 2.5, 3, 3.5?
Yeah, I don't know the projected contract for him off the top of my head, but hopefully it'd be somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
I think it might behoove them to go a little bit younger at that position, I guess is what I'm suggesting.
No, and I agree. Like, and if you do go, because I do think they're going to get a tight end in the 3rd or 4th round, somewhere around there. Maybe Sadiq will be the wild card. I don't know. I do think that. And if you do get a rookie, then it is tough to like develop with an already established blocking tight end plus Mark plus Njoku. So you're not developing much. So listen, again, if the price is low, fine. Do I think the Ravens are still going to get Njoku? I don't think so. I think they're now ready to go to the draft for these rookies.
Thanks, Fem. Inspired a good conversation. Wes Hall says, I'm amazed the fascination people still have with D-Hop. Fans have complained for years the only weapons Lamar gets are old, washed-up receivers, and they want a 34-year-old wide receiver. I think they want, I won't put any words in anyone's mouth because I don't like when that happens to me. But the way that you and I talked about the room being ironed out perhaps by DeAndre, Sarah, is maybe what folks would be interested in. Knowing that you have Zay Flowers, knowing that you have Bateman under team control, and when you look at what he's done when healthy, that he would be listed as a bargain. You've got a compelling developmental player who's shown signs of flashes of explosiveness and speed and route running ability in Devontae Walker, right? You're going to draft a wide receiver at some point. You need that veteran. And I think for what they're looking for, knowing that they're going to retool at tight end as well, I think that's what probably excites people, being that there was a lot of meat left on the bone from what DeAndre provided when he had a chance to last year. That would be my response to Wes.
I hear what Wes is saying. I just want the Ravens. Whatever. I might not get what I want either, but I want them to beef up the offensive line. And so far, I am uninspired.
Thanks, Wes. Kobe Pruitt is here for you.
He says it's clear EDC is keeping the cap space for this year open for something. I have to think it's for either Devontae Adams or AJ Brown post June 1. We're going to get into how much cap space is left now that Hendrickson has hit the books and many of the other signings they made last week.
Thanks, KP. Vashan. What's up, Vashan? Ravens have 11 picks. Might be able to sign D-Hop and get Zach Branch and Jacoby Lane. Wester to the practice squad. Remember, that would leave him susceptible to a potential claim in the year, just so we're clear on that. Still have 9 picks. Now, there's some practice squad protections they could use, but why would you use that on a specialist? Still have 9 picks to get offensive line and help the defense. So Vashan's putting together his strategy for this offseason. Sir, LaJonte is going to have a chance to be the primary starting specialist with Keaton gone. So when I say that as a return specialist, he's going to have a chance to compete with what? Justice? Who else? Who else handled those duties last year? Rasheen Ali. It'll probably be between Rasheen, LaJonte. I don't know if they'll continue to use Justice in some of those roles, and I'm sure one of the rookies they'll go a need for speed as well. Caleb Barnes is with us.
He says bump AJ trade, Bate and a third for Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, Jacksonville wouldn't be a willing trade partner is what I've read, Caleb, but I guess that can change depending on the compensation that you throw their way. KP says, sorry, Sarah. I love Vanga, but I don't see us paying Simpson starter money to back up. With the money invested in defense, I see picks used for the offense.
I don't think Simpson's going to change the Ravens draft strategy at all.
When you look at the figures that came out over the weekend, it sure suggests that they plan on starting him. Now, whether that's
Yeah.
left or right guard, right? And to
Right.
your point, what I'm guessing you're saying right now in rebuttal is, great. Then opposite him at whatever guard position they put him in, throw Vanga in there.
Mhm.
And sure, that could be a scenario that works.
A 2-year deal for Simpson does not negate like somebody who's going to be that's projected to be an all-pro offensive lineman for the next 10 years. Like,
Nope.
that's not how decisions are made.
Nope. But it could also reflect what they may feel they have at their lap, that falls in their lap at 14 in a non-offensive line.
Sure, and
standpoint.
it's not Vanga or bust. Like there's obviously other, second round, third round guards also. So
What if Fano falls to them? You got to take him.
right.
Spencer, you got to take him. Another one from Bashan for you.
I mean, Kobe, come on now. You think John Simpson is the person that's like it changes the whole draft strategy in the first round? All right. Bashan says Zay, Bateman, D-Hop, touchdown Tez, Jacoby Lane, Zach Branch. Branch is an upgrade to Wester, and Zay insurance policy still should have 9 picks left.
Bashan just unloading his notebook here today. DaCosta, if you're listening, Bashan's got you covered. Evan clarifying his previous super chat. He writes, I'm talking about the logic we use to excuse D-Hop. Lamar was injured. Offensive line was bad. Not enough targets. All these things are applicable to Rashad. But is there as much of a benefit of doubt, though, applied to Rashad as there is for DeAndre? I would argue no. Rashad's put forth one season to reflect the benefit of doubt, if you will. And he's 2 years removed from that now. The rest of his career, unfortunately, has been littered with antics on social media, availability issues or lack thereof, given his injury history. And Sarah, you already mentioned some of those, whether it's effort or concentration gaffes when it comes to locating the football and consistently route running to be on the same page with his quarterback. So I still am not, like, I get where Evan's coming from. I just don't agree with it. I think DeAndre deserves the benefit of doubt. I do.
Well, and like I was already Evan, these are all great points. We were already considering them. You're right. Everything that excuses D-Hop could be applied to Rashad. And so we already put that into the calculus when we gave the response of like why some people still might be warmer to Rashad, which Bobby laid out some right there.
Thanks, brother. Oddish writes,
Or
no
warmer
love
to
for
D-Hop,
Tyler. Say it again.
I said warmer to Rashad, but I mean warmer to D-Hop.
Yeah. Oddish for you.
He says, no love for Tylen. I would love to trade Bate. Zay is number 1. D-Hop is the vet 1B and wide receiver 2 and 3. Battle between Tylen and Tez. I have love for Tylen. We're talking about, I don't know. We're talking about wide receiver. When you bring up Tylen, you're talking about wide receiver 5 or 6. And we're talking about upgrading a veteran position that can have a real impact for Lamar Jackson. And the previous super chatter was like, here we're always talking about that Lamar doesn't have enough targets and he wants somebody bigger. And I'm talking more in that vein. Like, do I love Tylen? Would I invite him back? Sure. Wide receiver 5 or 6, not a problem. We're talking about number 3. Is that Tez, or is that a veteran? Is that a big physical body? Are we trying to upgrade? Do we believe in Bateman? We're talking about up there. Who's going to be behind Zay and who's going to compete with Bateman? And then also at number 3.
But what about this, Oddish? We're talking about a guy who didn't even dress for a handful of games last year in Wallace. He was inactive for a handful of games. So we got love for him. He made himself available by saying yes to everything, whether it was special teams, whether it was being a willing blocker, whether it was not dressing on game days at times. And he's got some highlight reel plays on his resume, none bigger than the walk-off against the Rams, the punt return, which is still talked about and will be talked about for a long time a couple of years ago. But we're talking about a player that was outside their game day calculation in terms of players who dressed at times last year. So NX Kia is back and clarifying it's Nokia, like the phone. Okay. So we now know who we're dealing with here, Sarah. Nokia writes, Ayuk is still there. I really do think we can get him for cheap and have a breakout year for us, but the offensive line is the top priority. So you're willing to sign up for the Brandon Ayuk experience? Let me just get this straight. You're willing to sign up for a player that is ever polarizing. There's been social media to suggest that he basically went cold turkey on his team, and now San Francisco essentially isn't releasing him, maybe even out of spite. That got really ugly really quickly. I had a chance to catch up with Grant Cohn about this in Indianapolis, which is why I'm speaking about it so matter-of-factly since he covers the 49ers. Sarah, count me out on Brandon Ayuk.
You made that very clear.
Oscar Williams for you.
He says, instead of Kenyon Sadiq, let's go Michael Trigg. Late day 2, early day 3. Needs to work on his blocking, but has elite ball skills.
Seeing a lot of his name buzzing in the live chat today. He is a 6'4", 240-pound tight end. He played for 3 different schools, Sarah. That is the NIL era, transfer portal era at its finest. He started at USC, then transferred to Ole Miss, and then spent his last 2 years at Baylor, where he became an all Big 12 first-team player. Prior to that, in 24, he was a second-team all Big 12 tight end. So again, kind of got that rangy, big body feel. Perhaps they might be interested in him come the weekend next month. The Great 174 says ranked last in offensive line spending the last 2 years. They have moneyballed the position group. We've discussed that.
Well,
they've also drafted
partially because they've drafted well. Roger Rosengarten and Tyler Linderbaum were both on rookie deals, but at the guard position where they wouldn't pay Zeitler, that's where they moneyballed.
Yep, they have drafted well. To your point, at that position. Trey Casey's here with us today.
He loves Fano. He loves Fano out of Utah since he can play tackle or center. Everybody knows Ravens wouldn't risk top 14 on a guard. I don't know about that. Trey. I see a top 10 wide receiver dropping or Kenyon. I just look at Ravens draft history.
You know, Sarah, I tend to.
They took a safety at 14.
I know.
Why wouldn't they take a guard at 14?
Because it ain't no Kyle Hamilton at the guard position. I know that in terms of value, what they felt like they could view him as and turn him into. And that's certainly.
Listen, I'm not going to pretend I'm some draft guru, but I do know that your boy, what's his name? ESPN's or former ESPN. What's your boy that called him a future Hall of Famer already?
Todd McShay. Todd McShay.
Already calling him a future Hall of Famer.
He did say something along the lines of, I have to remind myself that you do want a Hall of Fame guard. First round. Oh, Trey, that's funny. Partner, you're funny. Kobe says, has Vanga ever played right guard? Can he?
Here, I've got his snap count over here from Penn State over 4 years.
Awesome.
Okay, this is PFF has this, and I've paid for these premium stats, so I love it when I get to use them. Okay, this is not a cheap subscription. Okay, he played left guard, vast majority of left guard last year, 565 snaps to 1. In 2024, he had 783 at left guard, but 135 at right guard. In 2023, 520 versus 149. And then 2022, I mean, he was a rookie, didn't play much. So he's played, obviously, mostly at left guard, but over almost 300 snaps at right guard.
Okay.
So he can do both. And so if people are nervous about John Simpson being the future right guard, well, Vanga's been at the left.
Good versatility notes there. Thanks for bringing that up, KP. The Great 174 says, okay to spend $100 million on defense, but not the offense for 8. This is his weekly comment. Thank you, the Great Ones. We appreciate that. I think we got it last week, the week prior to that, but we do appreciate it. And that brings us to our newest channel, VAULTRON, who's becoming a member, and that's Caleb Barnes. Welcome to membership, Caleb. Great to have you. That's a dope profile photo there. It looks like you're at some rooftop bar that's overlooking whatever city that is. So appreciate you. And appreciate Richard for being with us on this Monday, Sarah.
He says, Vanga, Fano, Bain, Bailey, only guys I want at 14. If not, trade back, get another second. Draft Woods, McDonald first. Pregnon with first, second. Lou Slaughter, second. He's got it all figured out, Richard does.
That's those Lou and Slaughter, two of the potential center prospects that will be there come the weekend. Connor, I wouldn't be surprised. Connor Lou out of Auburn, listening to Mel Kiper this morning, and he feels like he'd be in that day 3 range. Just so, some people I think had 45. They were hell-bent on using 45 at the center position. I think you could find somebody of quality, and we'll have a slide from Daniel Jeremiah coming up a little bit later on in the program, Sarah. You could get some value on day 2, maybe even into day 3 that would have legitimate possibility of starting for you in 26. So thanks, Richard. And thanks to all of you for being with us on this Monday. If you could on the way in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership. Sarah, over the weekend, as Spot Rack noted here, there were 6 different Ravens players who had contract triggers vest. And why we bring it up is some of these names that you see here on the screen perhaps were looked at with uncertain futures prior to the weekend at various times throughout this offseason. So we'll rip through these and then kind of talk about the ones that matter. Kyle Hamilton's $17 million 2027 salary is now fully guaranteed. Travis Jones, $9 million of his 2027 salary is now guaranteed. $5 million of Mark Andrews' 2027 salary is now guaranteed. Marlon Humphrey, now you can start listening. Marlon Humphrey earned a $4 million roster bonus. Roquan Smith did so as well. And Justice Hill earned a $250,000 roster bonus. Sarah, I think I know what sticks out to us the most, but what say you?
Obviously, Marlon Humphrey. You just signed Kyle Hamilton, you just signed Travis Jones, and you just signed Mark Andrews. And so, of course, those triggers set in. You plan on having them in 2027. That's a no-brainer. The next 3 we had kind of wondered about, starting with Marlon Humphrey. So there was, you could have cut him. I don't think that would have been the right move, given that all you're doing is creating a open spot at the cornerback position. But he is making quite a bit of money. And to some of the super chatters' points, like we're talking about not spending money on offense, but you'll spend on defense. Okay, in 2026. Wait a minute. What is this showing me right here? Okay, here he is right here. In 2026. He has a cap hit of $26.3 million. 26.3. Trey Hendrickson is up around that number. We're talking about, could they pay AJ Brown? Obviously, that would create a trade also. Or would you go out and pay a Juwan Jennings? Or would you go out and pay more at the guard position? And, John Simpson is a modest deal. It's not a huge deal. And so you've got $26.2 million for Marlon Humphrey. And that's how much cornerbacks go these days. But he likely, especially with the re-signing of Chidobe Awuzie, Chidobe and Wiggins are going to be your outside corners, and those are the guys that make the most money. Now, Marlon can still do both, but he's been getting cooked. He's been getting cooked. And I thought this was interesting the other day. Somebody had put up some lowlights from Marlon Humphrey recently. This was back on February 27th. He responded to this, and they put up a bunch of lowlights from Marlo. Now, he had a great 2024 bounce back year. 2023 wasn't great, but then he seemed to dip again last year, and he got cooked. And here are some of those highlights where just over and over and over again, it just seemed like, now that one had decent coverage. That guy just made a great play. But yeah, DK Metcalf just took care of him right there. Like just some bad stuff. And I wouldn't have even seen these lowlights if Marlon himself hadn't responded to it and said, oh man. And I always love that Marlo doesn't take himself too seriously. But look, I mean, he just got burnt on that one against Kansas City. Now, some of these aren't all from 2025, obviously. But yeah, it's just $27 million. So the point is, some had speculated, including us, that the Ravens wouldn't cut him, but maybe they'd go and try to get a pay cut, like a true pay cut they did with Ronnie Stanley a few years back. Well, based off of these triggers getting the $4 million bonus, it seems like that's unlikely to happen at this point. I guess it still could. But Marlo's like, what? I got my roster bonus now. Looks like he's locked in. And so EDC is paying him. And Marlon said that on his podcast a while back, that he was told by EDC that he had a pretty good dang chance of returning, that it was a high percentage chance. So he is back, but we had all wondered if he would get a pay cut, because $27 million is a lot to pay, and probably overpaying based off of what he's been doing in 2025 and in 2023. And he's only had 1 out of 3 years that looked like a good year. So he's turning in the wrong direction.
I don't know if there was a rep that was more disappointing than the fade ball that Adam Thielen caught on him from Aaron Rodgers in that regular season finale. That was a rough rep there from Marlon. Adam had been sent to the streets. Pittsburgh picked him up last minute in an effort to keep their season alive in what was obviously vanilla type offense that they were running in a lot of ways. That was the worst rep of the season, I think. So they're banking on, in a sense, Sarah, that not only will he be rejuvenated and more motivated by this new defensive regime coming in, but he'll also get back to his 2024 form, because that was the bounce back year for him.
Right.
And I think we all know where he's at his best, and that's inside. That's where he can show. I think that's where his best instincts are on full display. I think that's where he uses his physicality to his strength. And that's obviously where I would assume they're going to be seeing in him the most, knowing that you just re-signed Cheeto Awuzie and that you have Nate Wiggins under team control on that rookie deal with the 5th-year option coming up in the years ahead. And then we'll see the rest of that. I mean, it's a stacked cornerback room in terms of depth, but who's going to rise, which of the cream's going to rise to the top of the crop that, will actually challenge those 3 players like we just mentioned for playing time. And then what will their draft situation be? Because right now, you're like we talked about last week when the Cheeto re-signing went down, your projected starters are Cheeto, Nate on the outside, Marlon on the inside, with the likes of TJ Tampa, Robert Longerbeam, Bilal Kone, right, and others that are on the outside looking in that are going to be trying to, fighting and scratching and clawing for 53-man roster projection makes.
Now, looking at Roquan, by the way, his cap hit is significant also. He's got a $32.7 million cap hit this year. So they had backloaded his contract big time after they traded for him. So he got $16 million in new cash based off of his base salary, and then a signing proration. I mean, he made some money. So listen, I don't know that you could cut Roquan Smith. You can't do that, especially when this position next to him is uncertain, with Buchanan still dealing with his injury, and maybe Trenton Simpson can step in for him. But up till now, they haven't been able to I think they've wanted to put him in and just make him Roquan's partner in crime, but that hasn't happened. So Roquan is now, his cap hit is 32.7. It's a lot of money for these 2 players, and they need to have bounce back years. And here's my thought. You've got Jesse Minter and Anthony Weaver now there. In a way, I think by going ahead and letting these triggers vest and paying these guys, in a way, the Ravens are saying, okay, we think it was a coaching thing. We think it was a coaching issue with Zach Orr, John Harbaugh, Zach Orr, and what we had. We feel like these guys can play well under a Jesse Minter system with Anthony Weaver there. And so that's what we're gonna find out. Did Roquan and Marlon really just fall off the cliff? Or did they slow down a little bit based off of their ages, but still have a lot to give in a better system? And I think in a way, the Ravens are betting that better coaching will bring better results from 2 of their defensive stars.
Hey, it should be mentioned that at one point last year, back to Marlon for a second here, this guy had a pin placed in his finger. He essentially had a dislocated finger, let's call it. And he still managed to create turnovers to the tune of 4, a team leading. Yes, it was a down year for his side of the ball, but a team leading 4 interceptions, a couple forced fumbles, a bunch of tackles for loss. I mean, this is a player that is a proud player. When I think of Marlon Humphrey, I think pride. Take the podcast out of the equation for a second. Take the social media antics out of the equation. This is the longest tenured defensive Raven, Sarah. This is a former first-round pick, and this is somebody that plays with a physicality and pride that is symbolic, I think, of what the Ravens defense is embodied by. And so with that in mind, yeah, maybe they do want him and view him as a lifelong Raven that's going to finish his career in Baltimore and then inevitably transition to safety and inevitably take those pay cuts in the years ahead because he wants to run it back and he wants to remain a lifelong Raven. Maybe there is synergy there between the two. But I certainly would sign up for the idea of what you just mentioned, that it is going to be a new, fresh, clean slate for everyone on the defensive side of the ball and on all three phases because of what they're changing structurally. So I'll sit back and wait to see who responds to that and who doesn't.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, the Ravens have made a statement. I mean, the coaches are brand new. They're brand new. There might be, I don't remember, maybe one or two guys that are held over. But I mean, this is a brand new regime. On the defensive side, the Ravens have let their number 3 safeties kind of walk in Ardarius Washington and Alohi Gilman. Outside of that, because Odafe Owe had already been traded in the middle of last year. Draymond Jones, they let walk, but they bring in Trey Hendrickson really to beef up the pass rush. And so it's like a lot of the defense is returning, but the coaches are not. And so that tells you everything of what the Ravens think the problems were.
Speaking of Trey Hendrickson, we now know the specifics of his deal.
Yeah, but with his deal in, which I'll show in just a second. Actually, it's not just his deal. With you get in, let me see if I have all of them listed here. Here we go. Trey Hendrickson is in. Awuzie is in. John Simpson is in. Tyler Huntley is in. Jalen Hawkins, Durham Smythe, Javon Gwynn, at the time that I made this slide, was not in. So with all these guys hitting the cap, where are they at overall? And this is what Spot Rec has. The Ravens have about 30.8 million left in the cap, which is now 15th in the league. Now, when I did the calculations using more with Brian McFarland, it was more like 27 million, but we're all in the same ballpark. That's still some money that you can do. Again, the Ravens have a lot of holes to fill, but they've also done a lot of work where they've replaced, they added to the pass rush. They still, I think, need to replace more of a Draymond Jones. Trey Hendrickson is different. He's more valuable, but he's different. But they replaced Charlie Kolar, their blocking tight end. They got their backup quarterback situation under wraps. They've got their number 3 safety under wraps. They did a lot of work last week. They've got an upgrade at right guard, although it's not enough for me, but they've got an upgrade at right guard. So they did a lot of work, but they have about 30 million still to play with, which to me says is you have more than just going out and finding little holes to plug. Like you have some cap space here to still make a biggish move.
And that's kind of what we spent some time on yesterday when Eric said that we're probably not going to break the bank anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
he's not going to project that he will.
Was there a poker face added into that? We've seen it before.
Right.
And now you've got the specifics of Trey Hendrickson's deal year by year.
Yeah. So they did backload it, but they still put in a hefty amount. He is going to be a $15 million cap hit this year, move up to $18 million next year. And then it skyrockets in 28 and 29. And they do have a void year there for 2030. And now void years are becoming a regular with the Ravens, Bobby. I think once you start, it's hard to stop. We've seen other teams do it. So the Ravens are following suit. And that's what's going on here. Now, I had seen Brian kind of push back because it does look like they could get out pretty easily after 2027. I don't have the dead money here in that, but some people thought, here it is, 27 million dead money right here. If they got out after 2027, that's a lot still. So, but I imagine Trey Hendrickson, they didn't sign him to a 4-year deal thinking it's a 2-year deal. So
right,
making it to 2028 seems probable. But that will balloon to 35.5 in 2028. Roquan Smith is essentially making that now in 2026 when the salary cap will be much less than what it will be in 2028.
As far as John Simpson's concerned, we know that his 3-year, $30 million deal was inked within the last week or so. And Aaron Wilson, former Baltimore Sun reporter, had the figures: $30 million, $10.5 million signing bonus, $17.5 million fully guaranteed. And you see the way that those salaries over those 3 years are going. And he's obviously fired up. I mean, he tweeted last week that there's unfinished business. And of course, he was plays away, if you will. It felt like a lot more than that in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City, but plays away from playing for a Super Bowl that season. Here is how it's all kind of divvied up. But the reason why, can very well be viewed as, hey, we're paying you starter money for a number of reasons, is that $11.5 million cap hit in 2027 with no out would suggest that they at least have the visions of keeping him as a starting guard over the next year or two, maybe even 3, if it's all, hey, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see what they do in free agency, and we'll see what kind of competition's brought in. I know you and I are both hoping for competition this summer, unlike last year with Fa'alele. But these are the numbers on Simpson that suggest that he's going to be a plug-and-play starter for them. We'll just figure out what side of the guard is. It was left guard in 2023, and that's what it's been with the Jets over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and to be clear, like if Linderbaum were still here, I'd feel very comfortable with this, right? So John Simpson's for sure going to be an upgrade over Daniel Fa'alele. I project him to be that. What makes me nervous is that he's not like this. I don't know. He's not the equivalent of, say, like a Linderbaum at the right guard position. And you're going to have, it's looking like they're going to have a rookie center there. For now, I mean, things change all the time. And then Emory Jones, while I liked his projection, he is inexperienced and you don't know for sure. And so the interior offensive line is still a little bit scary in my view for Lamar Jackson, but let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. I just don't know what they can do at center that would make me feel super comfortable. I don't know that there will be anything they will do that I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm super comfortable.
Couple different food for thought metrics. PFF rankings had John Simpson as the 41st among qualified NFL guards in 2025. PFF, as we always say, is not the be-all, end-all, but it is something that's used by a lot of folks in and around the NFL. Voorhees was their 47th ranked qualified guard, and Fa'alele was their 42nd ranked guard. Again, John Simpson came in with the Jets in 25 as their 41st ranked guard. In terms of blown block rate, this is according to SIS Sports Info. John Simpson had a 2.6% blown block rate. That was 25th among 62 qualified guards. Fa'alele had a 2.7 at 30th, and Voorhees 3.2% at 45th. So it is wild to think that statistically speaking, based on some of these metrics, and yes, Jeremiah, you're right, does not always translate to how you play on a play-by-play, snap-by-snap basis, but it does tell part of the story, and it is wild to think, Sarah, that Voorhees is pretty much universally ranked below Fa'alele in a lot of these rankings.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And it does scream. It screams what Jeremiah is screaming. Maybe he's screaming it. Maybe he's just talking it. It's look deeper than that. Because who had from an impactful standpoint on the wrong side of things, who had a more impactful presence on that offensive line last year? I think we could all agree. It's Fa'alele. And when I say impactful for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
At times. Dig deeper than that. I agree with you, Jeremiah. Dig deeper than what you're looking at projections-wise and rankings-wise, because looking for work was his biggest issue. He couldn't consistently find work.
Or he'd whiff also. He would just fall on his face.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Whatever. Let's move on from the offensive line because it's stressing me out, Bobby.
Sounds good. Here.
Oh, well, I said that. And then there's this. Okay. I was just thinking the other day, as we're talking about the offensive line, that when the Ravens declined Tyler Linderbaum's 5th-year option. You and me and the vast majority of people were like, the Ravens made the right decision not to give him the 5th-year option because $23.4 million, we were all saying, was way overpaying for a center. and the 5th-year option is really for a center is beefed up because it's the top 5. It's the average of the top 5 players across the offensive line, which includes tackle, who are oftentimes the highest paid players on a team. Quarterback, left tackles, pass rushers. They make a lot of money. I guess corners do too. So we're like, yeah, don't do 20. Don't 5th-year option him. That's too much. That's $5 million more than what Creed Humphrey, the highest paid center, is making. So in no way can I poo-poo Eric DaCosta because I was not calling for him. I thought it was a smart move not to 5th-year option him. He ends up getting $27 million. And the other crazy thing is, Bobby, is according to Jeff Zrebiec, the Ravens offered 4 years for $88 million, which is an average of $22 million. Like, I thought, like, if I knew that they were to offer him $22 million a year, I'd be like, fine, do the 5th-year option. This is one of those hindsight is 2020 kind of ordeals.
But
at the time, but I can't criticize it because I wasn't calling for it at the time. I was saying he's right.
If you were to ask us to do it over again, not knowing what just took place within the last couple of weeks, we'd say what we said again.
Yeah, we were knowing.
We were correct. That's the key part, not knowing. But we were correct given the organizational history and the projected number, and we were correct to say what we did. It's just a matter of what we now know, making us sound pretty clueless.
Yeah, and just one other thought because we kind of skipped over this, but this had Jameson Hensley summed up who the Ravens have lost and who's still remaining. We went through all the additions just a minute ago. I won't name all the guys, but like of all of them, here's the 11 free agents that they lost. Tyler Linderbaum's going to hurt the most. Okay. Ardarius Washington, I would have loved to have back as like just a guy that you love. Many of the others guys, it's like they'll be fine. Some people would argue Isaiah Likely. I wanted Isaiah Likely over Mark Andrews, but we know how that went. But then there's Keaton Mitchell. This one is more of like the head scratcher for me. That they didn't do more to keep him. As Bill Barnwell pointed out, they didn't tender him at $3.5 million. And he ended up getting $5 million from the Chargers. So Bill says it, which suggests they could have probably landed a late round pick in a trade. He says Mitchell's going to have a week in 2026 where he's the league-wide RB1 with Mike McDaniel.
Whoa.
So I think this is one that I'm still like trying to figure out. Like, why didn't you bring Keaton back? Like almost all the other ones, you get it. You get it. Like the Raiders, $27 million a year in 3 years. I get it. Isaiah Likely, you tried at least twice. He said no. You moved on. I get it. But Keaton Mitchell, I feel like they could have had him back if they wanted him. And I don't quite understand why they didn't want him back. I get that he's not the all-around player yet. He probably needed to work on, his pass blocking and his route running and all of that. But it's like, man, the speed and the upside was something.
I think you may have just hit on it, right? Even though it confuses you. They just didn't want him back. Which is tough when you see some of the explosiveness and speed and misdirection that he brought to the table. But like you mentioned, he was not without his shortcomings, and now he gets an opportunity maybe with Mike McDaniel to this point here, to Bill's point, that he can put all that, to use more often than maybe he would be given the chance to in Baltimore, knowing what they already have in that room.
And Troy's saying maybe Keaton didn't want to come back, but no, you could have tendered him. That's the point.
Yeah.
For 3.5.
Yeah. You had
and
control.
He just signed a $5 million. You had control.
Yep. You had the opportunity to have control.
This wasn't an unrestricted free agent situation. It didn't have to be.
And they opted not to.
Yeah.
Daniel Jeremiah noted that you can find quality starting interior offensive linemen on day 2 in this draft. Some of his favorites have already been mentioned on today's show. Basantis out of A&M. Pregnan out of Oregon. Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. Dunker, Iowa. Hecht, Kansas State. Jones, Iowa. several starters here, potential starters, that is, for Ravens center options in 2026, Sarah. Who's not on this list is Connor Lew. I know he's Mel Kiper's top overall prospect at the center position out of Auburn. Successfully recovered from an ACL tear during his collegiate time. And we've already heard about a number of these players, including Logan Jones. They've gone to the Iowa well before, and that was ironically how they got their last starting center. Tyler Linderbaum, of course, came from that Kirk Ferentz program in Iowa.
Yeah, see, it's not all Venga or bust. There's some other things here.
Yeah, and these will be day two. He's referring to them as quality interior day two guys. Doesn't mean they couldn't possibly be there come day three.
I mean, that's two rounds later, maybe.
Yeah.
But lots of options there. What else we got here? We're gonna say happy birthday to two goats, really. Kyle Hamilton and Ozzie Newsome. And so shout out to both of them. And then Bobby, Kyle Hamilton was on I Am Athlete.
Yeah.
And they asked him how far he could go with the numbers. They were like, how far can you go with the pi digits? I mean, listen, I knew Kyle Hamilton was smart. You can't play all these different positions and not be smart, okay? And move around seamlessly. You got to know this game. You got to have a memory. You got to know where everybody's going to be. You got to know a lot. This dude just knocked off. He just kept going and going and going.
Asian, so I might have just been born with it.
That's that Notre Dame education, everybody.
3.14159265358979 3238-4622-4338-3279-502-88419379. I think that's all I got. It'll never go away. I don't know why it's up there.
I'm actually going to ask my husband because my husband actually knows a lot of pi digits. I'm going to compare the two. How many digits was that?
Count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I don't know if he got all those.
The question becomes, does he use it as a best practice in his daily life?
What?
How can that be used in your day-to-day? I want to know.
No, well, you mean like almost a photographic memory? How is that being used?
No, this specific example of memorizing pi digits.
But something tells me he didn't have to work too hard to remember all of that. He credits his mom's Asian history on that side of the family.
Goodness.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know what? The chat can't have fun. The chat can't have fun at all. You guys are lame. Some of you are lame.
I think I might be with the chat today.
Come on. This is funny.
Now, do I think that in any way I think Kyle's extremely intelligent. I do. I really do.
Mr. Solo Dolo, we hate fun here. We sure do, including you, Bobby.
Consider me in that bank.
What does that help him on a day-to-day basis?
You know what I mean? That's where I'm at today. He is extremely intelligent. Consider me not moved by this.
Did you think that's why I brought it in? Is that I was trying to move you, or I was trying to have fun?
No, I'm guessing you probably thought that I wouldn't think it's fun, and you thought that it would inspire a good back and forth, which you're now getting.
Oh man, I actually didn't think that deep about it. I didn't expect you to say, "How does that help him on his day-to-day life?" Yeah, that's why I brought it in. Goofball.
Hey, speaking of day-to-day life, take a look at this that Tony Pan just tweeted from the Baltimore area. Holy heck.
Oh.
A possible funnel cloud tornado seen on I-70 at Howard County around noon. So literally an hour and a half ago. That sure seems to me looks like a pretty gnarly cyclone there. Photos courtesy of Jen Metcalf for all of you in the Baltimore area, or in this case, Howard County outside of it. Ooh, man. Look out.
Man, you say potential. I mean, that looks like.
Dang. That looks like a tornado, right?
That looks like the beginning of a tornado to me.
Yeah, for real. Man, stay
Holy
safe out there,
moly.
guys.
I'm telling you, man, the wind has been crazy.
Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Josh Johnson continues his career. Unbelievable. He, for a third stint, is going back to the Cincinnati Bengals, where he will have a chance to be the primary backup to Joe Burrow. He played for them during the 2013 season. Sarah's had multiple stints in Baltimore, including several starts over the years in relief of Lamar. And at 39 years old, Josh Johnson, in the same draft class as Calais Campbell in 2008, continues his career. Wow. You know, sometimes as a journeyman,
I'm unmoved. How does this help me in my day-to-day life?
There's ha 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 ha.
Wow. Whoa. Just giving you a taste of your own medicine here.
Unfortunately for you, it's not apples to apples. All right.
Oh gosh. Clearly it's not.
Listen, sometimes there's a negative.
He's just a journeyman. He's a clipboard holder. Why should I be impressed by this? Mom, get off my lawn.
You have such a short memory, or not, don't you? Listen, let me say my piece about Josh Johnson.
Say your piece. Go off about Josh Johnson. Go for it.
Sometimes there's negative connotation that comes with journeyman in sports. Josh trumps that narrative. 39. Look at what he's done throughout his career. He's coming in a pinch. It's one of the most important positions in all of football. Backup. We had a big argument about that recently. Snoop won a couple games, or at least helped them win a couple games last year against would-be playoff teams. Josh is going to have a chance to do that. Should Joe Burrow continue to be injured more often than not, his career continues. Congratulations to Josh Johnson, Sarah Ellison.
Congratulations, Josh. I'm hating on Bobby, not you.
More quarterback news. He doesn't deserve that. You do it dirty like that.
Oh, you did Kyle dirty.
No, I did your quick hit dirty.
Yeah, I did your quick hit dirty.
Justin Fields, he's on the move. And this is going to be interesting in all seriousness, because if Patrick Mahomes is not ready for week 1, which, knowing his rehab and how much of a freak he is in terms of his training, we'll see. He and Micah Parsons both tore their ACL the same day. They'll have a chance to be ready by week 1. But we'll see. If that's not the case, Sarah, he might be QB1 for the Chiefs after this news to start the season. The Jets have traded Justin Fields to Kansas City. Other teams were interested. He now goes to the Chiefs. And like Adam went on to say, being that he's recovering, Patrick is, from his torn ACL, perhaps Justin will get a chance to play, not only during the offseason program in the summer months, but perhaps, maybe it's a long shot. I don't know what the recovery timeline is for Mahomes, but this will be one to watch coming up. And it was a pick swap and how they got this done.
Yeah. So I don't know what who the other interested teams were, but this is interesting. I'm curious if Justin Fields is like resigned to becoming, more of a career backup rather than shooting for a starter spot, or because he does get to start, who knows? He'll have how many weeks? 4, 6 weeks, maybe. I don't know when Patrick Mahomes is supposed to come back. But have a couple weeks with Andy Reid. And so maybe you can just be like, hey guys, look what I can do with, maybe the best offensive play caller in the league, and with the stable franchise. So I don't know if this is him being like, maybe I can show people one more time what I can do until Patrick gets back. Or if he's just like, you know what, I'm good being a backup, and it'd be great to be Patrick's backup and I could learn a lot. I'm curious where he's settled with his career trajectory.
Antonio makes a good point too. We saw some packages in play for him in Pittsburgh after Russell Wilson took over the job. Remember, Justin led them to 4-2 in Pittsburgh a couple years ago. They then go to Russell Wilson, and when Russell was in there, they did have some packages that were used for Justin Fields' skill set. So perhaps Kansas City would have some trickery up its sleeve there. That's a good point from Antonio. But Sarah, I think your question still stands. And the question is, if he does showcase something, if he's given the opportunity to, and Patrick's not ready, and he shows up and shows out, will he be a potential candidate as a trade partner with a quarterback needy team come the deadline in November? Or this time next year, will he be viewed as someone that would be a sought after potential quarterback? He and Anthony Richardson find themselves in somewhat, one has started a lot more games than the other, but they find themselves in similar situation right now. Anthony is getting to the point where he probably needs to leave Indianapolis. They've been shopping him, or at least there's been some conversations about that. I know the Ravens were grouped into that list of teams that might have been interested, or at least that Anthony would have been interested in backing up from a Lamar standpoint. So be interesting to see where not both of these quarterbacks land. We know where Fields is going, but what about Anthony Richardson coming up? Those are our quick hits. We got some super chats as well. We left off with Richard, and we picked things back up with Dre Dog for you.
Dre says, Bobby, Sarah, love y'all. Y'all too. Life, remember people. Hold on a second. Bobby, Sarah, love y'all. To life, remember people may want your place, but you can never pay your price. Let our actions be a reflection of our hearts. And then 3 purple hearts. Dre bringing in more inspiration.
That's where he goes.
People may want your place, but they can never pay your price.
It's as if he was sitting next to me in the pew yesterday. We're halfway through Lent season. I found a great new parish right around the corner, Catholic Church, St. Paul's here in St. Pete. Similar sentiments were shared yesterday during the homily. Great stuff, Dre. Jeremy Lee says it's not football, but can we give Gunner some love? Gunnar Henderson, Sarah, parked one in the World Baseball Classic last night. A no-doubter and a game-tying homer. To be honest with you, I went to bed early last night, and I never actually saw who won that game between them and the Dominican. So let's see who won. Team USA won 2-1. So Gunnar was the difference.
Nice.
In that game. Gunnar Henderson was the difference in the semifinal, and that allowed Team USA to advance to the World Baseball Classic final. Good stuff, Jeremy. That brings us to Katie, celebrating 9 months of channel membership.
Katie says, want to say thank you, God, for deciding that my son would be that one sheep you'd saved 9 years ago after a heroin overdose. He's got a great family, job, and home. I love that. That's awesome. That is awesome, because I do believe I've seen miracles happen too, and I'm glad that Katie is seeing it with her son, where you just feel like you just don't know if somebody's going to make it. And boy, oh boy, is heroin a tough one to come back from. I've definitely witnessed that. I've seen people overcome it, and I've also seen people still enslaved by it. Really happy for you, Katie. So happy for you. That is awesome. And I love the one sheep analogy, of course.
How about the vulnerability? I mean,
yeah.
Katie, this is takes a lot to open up to everybody like this. It's certainly easier though when you have a success story to talk about, and you certainly do. So congratulations to you and your family, and of course that your son now is seeing things clearly. He deserves that, and I'm sure you as a supportive mom certainly deserve that as well. So congratulations. That's powerful.
That's
right
awesome.
There. Super.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of super chats like that often. So you just makes you want to leave it up on the screen so everybody can celebrate them for a second. So Katie, again, thank you for sharing that with us today. The Great 174 says the way this offensive line is constructed right now, even if we add Vanga, it's not a Super Bowl winning O-line. And that's concerning for a lot of us with protection for 8 and even him signing an extension. Your thoughts? He's harping on this, man.
Well, let's see. He's saying even if we add Vanga, so that means you'd have
2 starting guards.
You'd have Ronnie Stanley, Vanga, question mark at center, John Simpson, Roger Rosengarten. I feel pretty good about those 4, if that were the case. But the wild card is the center. Now, if they were able to re-sign Tyler Linderbaum, you're like, oh, shoot, Linderbaum and Vanga, Simpson, you're feeling great. So who's the center is the question. But that's Vanga next to Ronnie. It's pretty nice.
I would implore the great 174 to at least bear in mind that Dwayne Ledford comes in with a pedigree of development and top-notch offensive line expertise, including the run game coordination background that he has from his Atlanta Falcons days. I think that should be involved in this as a component, not the be-all, end-all, as a component of what leads you to feeling perhaps encouraged by what's coming and the different voice that's now going to be manning that entire room. Blake Yaspa and No Way DJ, thank you both for believing in what we're building. This is your monthly shout out because of the support that you guys give us consistently, long time through Patreon. Hope you guys are great. And if you guys are interested out there in doing the same, you can visit patreon.com/Ravens Vault Podcast if you'd like to support. Partner, which seed, not to put you on the spot, which seed in which bracket, if you paid attention, you've had a lot going on outside of this show, did your BYU Cougars get yesterday on Selection Sunday?
Number six.
And where will they be playing? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let me look it up real quick.
All right. Because Selection Sunday was one of many things that happened yesterday. You had the World Baseball Classic. You had the Players' Championship, which I was locked in for, and just a epic collapse by one of my favorite golfers out there, Ludvig Åberg out of Sweden. He had a several-shot lead going into the final round and collapsed on the back nine. I was sad for him, but also happy for Cameron Young, who had a heck of a finish, including on that 17th hole. What an electric finishing stretch. If any of you have not yet visited and you like the game of golf, TPC Sawgrass in Jacksonville, I can honestly say, Sarah, that I would put it up there with the Olympics and the Army-Navy game that I was privileged to work while I was at BAL, of the three most electrifying sporting events that I've been to. The finishing stretch at TPC Sawgrass at the Players' Championship, the Olympics, and Army-Navy. All for different reasons. Those are my top three.
Nice. Love it.
Bracket time.
This is why I didn't know. Yeah, they're number 6 seed in the West region. They will face the winner of a first 4 matchup between Texas and NC State in the round of 64 on Thursday in Portland. So that's why I didn't know.
Portland.
Woo. I tell you what, Bobby, the Ravens, the Cougars, the surrounding community that does fundraising, obviously for NIL deals and all of that, they went out and paid AJ DeBanza. They better not get kicked out early. I need at least an Elite 8 appearance. Would love Final Four and obviously beyond. I need this in my life.
Best
Can I have
wishes
this in
to
my
your boy.
life? Also, do you think this is? I'm trying to make this fun for my family. My oldest son is obviously big into March Madness, but I wanted our family to do a bracket together. So I told everybody we're all going to fill out brackets, even my 8-year-old daughter, who really doesn't seem too interested. But I said the winner of our family would get $50. I think that's really motivated my kids. I hope I'm not stirring trouble. But this should be fun. This should be fun. My daughter was like, "How do you expect me to win this?" And I was like, "You don't understand, sis." I was like, "A lot of people who know nothing about basketball win these brackets. You could win just as much as me."
Correct.
Okay. So we'll see. That's what we're doing. The Family Ellison bracket. Winner gets $50.
Every year, there's a certain, no matter what bracket, where you are, work event, softball event, friend group, you name it, somebody that has not a clue ends up taking it home and all the winnings along with it. I want to shout out a 16 seed matchup. It'll be Siena and Duke. And this has to do with my roots. You guys know that I'm originally from Albany, New York. And I had the privilege, Sarah, of growing up in mid-major mania. What do I mean by that? Siena and UAlbany, rivals in upstate New York. One of the America East Conference in the Albany Great Danes, one in the MAC in the Siena Saints. they had a wonderful era of college basketball. For those of you that watched Fran McCaffrey's career blossom at Iowa, he used to be the head coach of Siena. Will Brown used to be the head coach of the Albany Great Danes. And those two had phenomenal rivalries over the years in upstate in the 5-1-8. Siena gets the 16 versus 1 matchup in Duke. But the reason why I bring it up, for those of us that remember the unbelievably iconic, historic game in the Big East tournament between Jerry McNamara's Syracuse Orange, right, and the Connecticut Huskies, which was like a 6 overtime thriller. Jerry McNamara is now the head coach of the Siena Saints, and he's turned them around in a couple years. Watch that one. I don't know if we're going to see a 16 upset Duke, but it'll be fun to see Jerry Mack go back to March Madness because he's a staple and a legend of this tournament. Can't wait. It's the best week of the year.
It's going to be so much fun.
Let's go.
I cannot. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, you're darn right it is.
Let's go.
And how about UMBC being back in it? UMBC is back in the tournament, and they're the only ones in the state of Maryland to represent in the field. Good stuff. And I'll never forget, Sarah, when they took down Virginia. I will never, ever
Will
forget.
Anybody in the Maryland area forget that?
That was one of the most ridiculous runs, all coached by Ryan Odom at the time, the UMBC Retrievers. Anyway, appreciate you guys for humoring us here as we finish up. It is the best month of the year for my money. And for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Monday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. Thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of the program. We would love for you to enter yourself into this month's giveaway to be eligible for a $100 gift card giveaway at the end of this month that can be used directly towards our merch line. That's thevaultpod.com/shop. Vaultrons, we appreciate you, and you were rolling all day long, well north of 1,300 concurrents at peak in the YouTube space. And as always, if you could on the way out, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership. We appreciate you, Vaultrons, and we'll catch up with you on Tuesday at noon Eastern, if not before, as always, right here inside the Vault.